What happens after death? For thousands of years, humanity has asked this question. Is death the end of existence or simply a transformation? Modern science often says that when the brain stops working, consciousness disappears. But ancient philosophical traditions offered a very different perspective. They believed consciousness does not die. It returns. It returns to the same source from which the universe itself emerged. In Indian philosophy, this final liberation is called moksha. In Buddhist traditions, a similar state is known as nirvana, a state beyond birth and death, a state where the individual self dissolves into the infinite. Life as a temporary form, ancient Indian philosophy begins with a simple observation. Everything in the universe changes form. Stars are born, shine, and collapse into new cosmic structures. Water evaporates into clouds, becomes rain, and flows back to the ocean. Nature is a continuous cycle of transformation. Indian sages believed life follows a similar pattern. The physical body is temporary, but the deeper essence of consciousness, the Atman, continues its journey. The Atman is the witnessing awareness behind all experience, the silent observer of thoughts and emotions. When the body dies, the Atman continues through the cycle of birth and rebirth, known as samsara. But there is a final destination, moksha, where the individual self dissolves into the universal consciousness. The ocean and the drop. Ancient teachers often used a simple metaphor. Imagine a drop of water falling into the ocean. Before falling, the drop has its own form and identity. Once it merges, it does not disappear. It becomes the ocean itself. The sense of separation exists only because of limited perception. When true knowledge arises, the individual consciousness merges with the universal reality, called Brahman, infinite existence and awareness. The Buddhist perspective. While Indian traditions speak of moksha, Buddhism describes nirvana. The word literally means extinguishing, but it does not mean the extinction of existence. It refers to the extinguishing of illusion. The illusion that the self is permanent. The illusion that identity is fixed. According to Gautama Buddha, what we call the self is a constantly changing process of thoughts, emotions, and memories. When the attachment to a fixed identity dissolves, freedom from suffering is achieved. This is nirvana. A scientific reflection, modern science approaches these questions through physical processes, yet interesting parallels appear. Physics tells us that energy can never be destroyed. It can only change form. When a star explodes, its matter becomes the building blocks of new worlds. When organisms die, their atoms return to the environment. At the deepest level, reality consists of fluctuating energy fields. Some physicists even speculate singularity, where all matter and energy once existed in a single state. Consciousness and the mystery of the observer. In quantum mechanics, the behavior of particles appears to change depending on observation. This mystery suggests that observation itself plays a role in reality. Ancient Indian philosophy placed the observer at the center of existence. Meditation traditions were essentially experiments in awareness. When seekers explored who is the one that sees, they reported that the observer had no fixed boundary. It was connected to something universal. The final liberation. In the language of ancient philosophy, the journey continues until this realization is complete. As long as consciousness identifies with temporary forms, the cycle continues. But when awareness recognizes its true nature, the individual self dissolves into universal consciousness. This is moksha, not an escape from the universe, but a return to its deepest reality, a different way to understand death. From this perspective, death is a transformation, like a wave returning to the ocean, like a star returning its matter to the cosmos. Ancient wisdom suggests life is part of a cosmic journey of awareness. Whether science will ever confirm these ideas remains uncertain, but the dialogue between ancient philosophy and modern physics suggests that the mysteries of consciousness and the universe may lead toward the same ultimate truth. Indian wisdom really says about moksha. If we want to understand moksha deeply, we must first understand something important about Indian philosophy. Ancient Indian thinkers were not only religious teachers. Many of them were also philosophers, observers, and explorers of consciousness. Instead of building laboratories outside, they built laboratories within the human mind. Through meditation, through deep awareness, through centuries of observation. And from this exploration emerged one of the most profound ideas in history. The universe is a single, unified reality. This is beautifully described in the ancient texts known as the Upanishads, the philosophical foundation of Sanatana Dharma. They contain a statement that has fascinated seekers for thousands of years. Tat Tvam Asi. It means, you are that. It suggests that the deepest essence of the individual self is identical to the essence of the universe. The same consciousness that observes the world is connected to the same reality that created it. The illusion of separation. According to Indian philosophy, the greatest illusion of human life is the belief that we are completely separate individuals. We say, my body, my mind, my life. But when sages examined the nature of the self, they noticed the body constantly changes, cells regenerate, and atoms move in and out. Memories appear and disappear. Thoughts and emotions rise and fall like waves. If everything we identify with is changing, then what is the permanent self? Ancient philosophers suggested that behind all these experiences is a silent awareness, a witness called Atman. It is not the personality or the ego. It is pure consciousness. And according to the Upanishads, Atman is not separate from the universal reality called Brahman. Moksha happens when this truth is realized directly, not intellectually, but through deep awareness. The end of the cycle. As long as consciousness identifies with temporary forms, the cycle of rebirth continues. This is samsara. 1. Birth. 2. Life. 3. Death. 4. Rebirth. Moksha is the moment when this cycle ends, when awareness no longer sees itself as a separate entity, but as part of the universal consciousness. In simple terms, moksha is freedom. Freedom from ignorance. Freedom from fear of death. Freedom from the illusion of separation. Why the mind creates illusion. Ancient sages called the force that obscures reality Maya. Maya does not mean the world is fake. It means our perception is incomplete. We see fragments, not the whole. Just as someone looking at a wave may forget that the wave is actually part of the ocean. A possible scientific reflection. Modern science is beginning to explore ideas that sound surprisingly similar. In physics, matter once appeared solid, but quantum physics revealed that atoms are mostly empty space and matter is a temporary arrangement of energy fields. This resembles the ancient idea that the physical world is not as fixed as it appears. In neuroscience, the hard problem of consciousness remains. Is awareness just a product of the brain, or is it a fundamental aspect of reality? Some researchers are now questioning if consciousness is connected to deeper physical processes in the universe. Meditation as an inner science. In the yogic traditions, meditation was a systematic method of exploring consciousness. Practitioners learned to watch the mind itself. They discovered that even the sense of I, the ego, could be observed. When the ego becomes an object of awareness rather than the subject, a profound shift occurs. Consciousness becomes spacious, open, boundless. This realization is the beginning of liberation. One no longer fears death because they see it as a transformation of form, just as a wave dissolves back into the ocean. The bridge between science and philosophy. Today, humanity stands at an interesting moment. Science explores the deepest structures of matter. Philosophy explores the nature of consciousness. Ancient Indian wisdom does not claim to replace science. Instead, it offers a different path of exploration, one that begins not with telescopes, but with the awareness experiencing them. Perhaps the deepest truth about existence lies between these two approaches. Human life is a journey of awareness, a gradual awakening to the nature of existence. Whether one approaches this through meditation, philosophy, or scientific inquiry, the search for truth remains the same. And perhaps one day, humanity will discover that the ultimate mystery of the universe is not consciousness, the source, and the final physics. For centuries, science and spirituality seem to stand on opposite sides. Science searched for truth through experiments and equations. Spiritual traditions searched for truth through meditation and inner awareness. But the deeper humanity explores the universe, the more mysterious reality appears. The universe is not just a collection of objects. It is a vast network of energy, fields, and probabilities. Atoms dissolve into subatomic particles. particles dissolve into quantum fields. And at the deepest level, physicists speak about something extraordinary. A state where the known laws of physics break down. A point where space and time themselves lose meaning. This idea is often described as a singularity. In cosmology, the entire universe may have once existed in such a state, a point of infinite density and infinite potential. From that point, space, time, and matter emerged. Everything we see today began from that single origin. In philosophical language, this raises a fascinating question. If everything emerged from one unified source, could everything eventually return to it? The return to the source? Ancient Indian philosophy describes reality in a surprisingly similar way. It says that the universe emerges from an infinite consciousness known as Brahman, not a physical object, but the ultimate ground of existence. According to the Upanishads, the deepest essence of every living being, the Atman, is not separate from this universal reality. This idea is summarized with a profound statement. Atman is Brahman. The individual consciousness and the universal consciousness are fundamentally the same. Moksha is the realization of this unity. The dissolution of the self, one of the most misunderstood ideas in spiritual philosophy, is the dissolution of the self. Many imagine this as the destruction of identity, but ancient teachers described it differently. Imagine a wave on the surface of the ocean. For a moment, the wave appears separate. It has a shape, a form, a beginning, and an end. But the wave is never truly separate from the ocean. It is made of the same water. When the wave settles back into the ocean, nothing is destroyed. The water simply returns to its larger identity. In a similar way, moksha is the dissolution of the illusion of separation. Energy, matter, and transformation. Modern physics reveals that reality is constantly transforming. Matter is simply energy organized in particular patterns. According to Einstein's E=mc², matter and energy are interchangeable. Everything transforms. Nothing truly disappears. Energy cannot be destroyed. It can only change form. While physics does not yet claim that consciousness behaves the same way, the concept raises interesting philosophical parallels. Ancient thinkers believed that the essence of consciousness also continues beyond physical transformation, not as a fixed personality, but as a deeper universal awareness. The mystery of consciousness, perhaps the greatest unsolved question in modern science, is the nature of consciousness itself. Neuroscience can map brain activity. It can observe electrical signals in neurons. But explaining why awareness exists at all remains a mystery. Some philosophers suggest that consciousness may be more fundamental than previously believed, not a byproduct of matter, but a basic aspect of reality. Ancient Indian philosophy suggested the opposite of the materialist view. Matter emerges within consciousness. In this view, the universe is a manifestation of awareness. Life becomes a process through which consciousness experiences itself, and moksha becomes the final recognition of that truth. The end of the journey. In the language of Indian philosophy, the journey of life continues through many experiences. Each life becomes an opportunity for consciousness to understand itself more deeply. But when the deepest truth is realized, the journey changes. The cycle of samsara ends. There is no longer a need for repeated births, because the illusion of separation has dissolved. This state is moksha. Freedom from fear. Freedom from ignorance. Freedom from the cycle of becoming. The final physics. Perhaps one day science will explain consciousness in ways we cannot yet imagine. Or perhaps some aspects of consciousness will always remain beyond measurement. But the dialogue between ancient wisdom and modern science continues to grow. Both are searching for the same ultimate question. What is the true nature of reality? Ancient sages answered this with a simple insight. The universe is not something separate from us. We are expressions of it, temporary forms within an infinite reality. And when those forms dissolve, the essence returns to the source. Because the final mystery of existence may not be where we go after death, but the realization that we were never separate from the universe at all.